It started with a sound, a voice that said, "Ma'am, step away from the bag," and a hand, heavy, uninvited, clamping down on her shoulder. Leah Monroe froze, her fingers still wrapped around a bottle of vanilla nutrition drink, her mother's favorite. She turned slowly, meeting the cold stare of Officer Trent Bailey, badge 4187, tall, squared jaw, eyes already filled with suspicion. To him, Leah was simple math. Black woman, canvas tote, expensive store, guilty. "Sir, I'm shopping for my mother," she said softly, her words calm, controlled, even as his grip tightened. Bailey's smirk didn't move. "Sure you are." His hand dug deeper into her arm. He didn't know who she was. He didn't care. 30 phones lifted into the air like a field of blinking eyes. Every second caught, every breath recorded. By sunrise, that video would cross 3 million views. But right now, Leah's world had narrowed to one man's arrogance. 22 years. That's how long she'd worn a badge herself. Captain Leah Monroe, Narcotics Division. A woman who'd faced cartels, interrogated murderers, and trained officers on de-escalation. And yet, in that moment, her badge meant nothing, because he wouldn't even look at it. He just saw what he wanted to see, and he didn't know this mistake would unravel a secret buried for years, one worth more than $100,000, tied to names high enough to reach the chief's office. All because one officer refused to look at an ID. What happens when the system arrests itself? 6 hours earlier, the morning sunlight poured into a quiet kitchen. Leah stood over the stove, trying to coax her mother to eat. "Mom, please. The eggs are getting cold." Ruth Monroe blinked slowly, lost in a fog of confusion. "Do I know you?" Leah's chest tightened. "It's me, Mom. Leah." Her mother frowned. "Leah's at work. She's a police officer." "I am," Leah whispered. "I'm here now." She guided a fork to her mother's lips, helping her eat. 8 medications lined the counter. Labels, colors, pill boxes. Her life reduced to daily rituals to hold back the tide of Alzheimer's. "Mrs. Kim from next door will check on you at noon," Leah said. "I'll be home by 3. Her mother nodded, but her eyes had already drifted away, lost again to memory's haze. Leah kissed her forehead. "Love you, Mom." Outside, the sky was clear. Riverside Square shimmered under glass towers and designer storefronts, the kind of place where parking cost $20 and smiles were polite but cautious. Leah wore sweatpants, a faded university hoodie, and carried her old tote bag. Her badge and gun were locked in her car. It was her day off. She knew how people looked at her here. She knew the silent calculation. Wrong skin, wrong clothes, wrong neighborhood. She had once made those stops herself. She had once written those reports. But knowing the system doesn't stop it from seeing you as a threat. At the health aisle, Leah picked up a carton of vanilla Ensure, the kind her mother liked before her appetite vanished. She slipped it into her canvas tote, the same one she'd used for years. Reusable. Harmless. A white woman passed by, eyes flicking from the tote to Leah, then away just as fast. That look, that small, sharp flicker of judgment Leah had seen 1,000 times before. But this time, something different was watching too. A teenage boy holding a phone. Recording. Curious. He didn't know that his video would ignite a fire. That's when Officer Bailey appeared. Heavy boots, measured steps, the sound of authority approaching. His voice cut through the aisle. "Step away from the bag." Leah turned, calm but alert. She measured everything, the distance between them, the second officer standing back, the angle of Bailey's hand near his weapon. "Officer, I'm just shopping." "I observed you conceal merchandise," he said, rehearsed and automatic. She exhaled slowly. "I was about to pay." "Empty the bag." The store stilled. Conversations paused, heads turned, phones rose, cameras started rolling. A woman whispered, "What's happening?" A teenager typed, "Cop harassing a woman at Silvergate Market. Upload, post, hashtag." Within minutes, the internet began to stir. Leah reached for her wallet, her movements deliberate. "I'm Captain Leah Monroe, Narcotics Division. My badge is in my—" "Don't reach," Bailey snapped. His hand hovered over his holster. She froze. "Check my ID." "In sweatpants?" He scoffed. "Nice story." His partner, Officer Harris, young and uncertain, shifted nervously. "Sir, maybe we should verify." "You questioning me, Harris?" Bailey's voice dropped, laced with threat. Harris swallowed and stepped back. The store manager, Daniel Cho, rushed forward. "Officer, I know this woman. She's Captain Monroe. She shops here all the time." Bailey didn't even glance at him. "Step back, sir, or I'll cite you for obstruction." "She's buying groceries for her mother," Cho protested. Last warning. A woman in the crowd shouted, "Just let her show her ID." Another voice joined. "Why won't he check it?" Leah stood still, calm, unflinching. She knew the math of moments like this. 2 officers, dozens of witnesses, hundreds of eyes online. And one wrong move could destroy her life. She'd written the de-escalation manual for the department, taught it to hundreds. Now she was watching it burn in real time. Bailey's hand hovered over his cuffs. "Turn around." "Officer Bailey," she said, voice steady. "You're making a serious mistake." He smirked. "You people always think you're special." That phrase would echo across the country within hours. But in that moment, it was just a spark before the explosion. Leah turned around. Not out of submission, but survival. Behind her, 30 phones captured history. Bailey reached for her wrists, cuffs gleaming in the bright supermarket light. Each click of metal sealing his fate, not hers. Because what he didn't know was that every second of his arrogance was already live, and millions were about to see what happens when truth wears the wrong skin. The cuffs bit into Leah's wrists as the crowd erupted in disbelief. Someone shouted, "She told you she's a cop!" Another voice broke through the noise, trembling. "Why won't he check her ID?" Officer Bailey didn't respond. He gripped her arm and pushed her toward the exit. The store's automatic doors slid open, the blast of afternoon heat swallowing the sound of clicking cameras and murmured outrage. Her tote fell to the ground. The contents spilled across the tiled floor. The bottle of vanilla Ensure, her wallet, car keys, and a small photo of a young man in a football uniform. Number 23. Her son, Jordan. A girl bent down, picked up the photo, and whispered, "That's Jordan Monroe. He died 3 years ago. My brother played with him." Leah's throat tightened. Not now. She blinked hard, refusing to cry. Bailey's voice barked beside her ear. "Keep walking." Daniel Cho tried again. "Officer, please." "You're making a mistake." Bailey turned, his tone sharp. "Interfere again and I'll have you arrested." Harris shifted uncomfortably behind him, eyes flicking between Leah and the swelling crowd. Every phone was recording. Every second of this humiliation was being preserved. Leah spoke calmly, her voice carrying over the noise. "Officer Bailey, I am Captain Leah Monroe, Narcotics Division. Badge number 0861. Verify it before you make this worse," Bailey sneered. "Nice try, lady. That badge number belongs to a dealer I busted last month." "That's not my badge number," Leah said quietly. "You misheard. No, I heard you fine. Now turn around." "I'm ordering you," she said, steady and professional, "to verify my identity." Bailey stepped closer, his face inches from hers. "You don't order me." His voice was low and venomous. "You people always think the rules don't apply." He shoved her head down as he pushed her into the back seat of the patrol car. The metal doorframe hit her temple. The sting spread fast, mixing with the smell of leather, sweat, and fear. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She counted breaths, controlled like she taught rookies in crisis training. 1, 2, 3, stay calm. Stay human. Officer Harris's voice was a whisper outside the car. "Kyle, we should call a supervisor. You want to question me again?" Bailey snapped. "No, sir," but his hands trembled as he spoke into his radio. "Dispatch Unit 12, 1 female in custody. Possible theft and impersonation," static crackled. "Copy Unit 12, description." Bailey's jaw tightened. His voice came through the mic. "Female, black, 40s, claims to be." He hesitated, the radio replied. "Unit 12, describe her specifically." The voice was sharp, commanding. Leah recognized it instantly. "Sergeant Ramirez." Her direct supervisor, Bailey, swallowed. 5'7", short hair, scar over her left eyebrow. The radio went silent. Then Ramirez's voice returned, cold and precise. Unit 12, did you say scar above her left eyebrow? Yes, Sergeant. The next words froze the air. Officer Bailey, tell me you didn't just arrest Captain Leah Monroe. Harris went pale. The crowd outside gasped. The live stream comments exploded. Bailey's face drained of color. His mouth opened, but no words came. 1,000 people were watching it unfold live, every one of them hearing the same thing. A police officer had just arrested his own captain. Ramirez's voice thundered through the radio. Unit 12, respond. Did you arrest Captain Monroe? Bailey's reply was a whisper. She didn't identify herself properly. She what? Ramirez's voice cracked through the static. That's your commanding officer. Your captain. The crowd erupted into shouts. Someone yelled. He arrested his own boss. Others cheered. Phones rose higher. Within minutes, national news feeds were picking it up. Hashtags exploded across social media. Captain Monroe, justice in uniform, Bailey's career, his reputation, his illusion of control. All of it burned alive under the spotlight he created. Leah sat in the back seat, wrists throbbing, her heartbeat steady now. Calm, controlled, watching him unravel in front of thousands. Officer Harris's radio buzzed again. Unit 12, stand by for Sergeant Ramirez's arrival. Do not move. Ramirez's patrol SUV screeched into the lot minutes later. He jumped out before the wheels stopped spinning. His voice cut like glass. Out of the car, now. Bailey stepped back, stammering. Sarge, you arrested a superior officer in public without checking ID. You put her in cuffs? Bailey's lips moved, but the words came out broken. She looked, You thought wrong. Harris lowered his gaze. Sergeant, it's all on video. The whole thing. Ramirez's face hardened. Then the world already knows. He turned to Leah. Ma'am, I'm so sorry. Are you hurt? Physically? No, she said. But this isn't about me anymore. Ramirez nodded slowly. He didn't ask what she meant. He could already see the crowd, the cameras, the unfolding chaos. Bailey's hands were shaking now. I didn't mean... Leah looked at him through the open car door. You never do. That's the problem. She stepped out, wrists bleeding from the cuffs. Ramirez unlocked them, his jaw clenched with fury. Document everything, Leah said. Photos, timestamp. Every mark. Ramirez nodded and took out his phone. The flashes captured red welts circling her wrists, the small cuts from metal, the proof that power had gone unchecked. The crowd outside cheered. Some cried. Others shouted her name, though most didn't know her before that day. But in every phone and every heart watching, something shifted. Inside the police car, Bailey sat alone, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The badge that once made him powerful now looked like a curse. He whispered to no one. What have I done? Leah didn't look back. She knew this was only the beginning, because what started as a wrongful arrest was about to expose something far deeper. A web of lies buried under the weight of badges, paychecks, and silence, and the city had no idea how far down it went. That night, the video hit 3 million views. The internet was awake. The police department wasn't sleeping, and neither was Leah Monroe. She sat at her kitchen table, wrists bandaged, laptop open. Each new notification blinked like a heartbeat. Messages poured in from strangers. Some thanking her, some threatening her. But the one message that stopped her cold came from an unknown number. Stop digging, Captain, or you'll regret it. Leah stared at the words for a long time. Then she whispered to herself, now I know where to dig. The next day would uncover a trail of money, corruption, and betrayal that stretched to the highest ranks of her department. And it all began with a single arrest that was never supposed to happen. And in a city built on silence, Leah Monroe had just declared war on it. The morning sun poured through the blinds, painting stripes of gold across Leah's kitchen table. She hadn't slept. Her wrists ached under the bandages. Every muscle in her body was alert, coiled, waiting. The video had already reached 5 million views. News anchors were dissecting every frame. Commentators debated what the arrest said about systemic bias, while the department issued a statement calling it an unfortunate misunderstanding. Leah stared at the screen, misunderstanding. That word burned. Her phone buzzed. Sergeant Ramirez. Captain, Internal Affairs wants you in at 9. Chief's office. You're not suspended, but they're in damage control mode. Leah closed her laptop. Then let's give them something to control. At headquarters, the hallways were quiet. Colleagues who used to greet her with nods now kept their eyes down. Fear traveled faster than truth. The conference room smelled of coffee and tension. Chief Douglas sat at the head of the table. Beside him, Union President Carl White, Department Attorney Daniel Foster, and Internal Affairs Lieutenant Mark Shaw. Leah entered, shoulders squared. Shaw's sharp eyes flicked to the bruises on her wrists. Captain Monroe, he said smoothly, we're here to review yesterday's unfortunate incident. Unfortunate. The word again. Cold and safe. Chief Douglas gestured to a chair. Please sit. I'll stand, Leah replied. White leaned back, folding his hands over his stomach. You've caused quite a media storm, Captain. We're under heavy scrutiny. The city's worried. You understand the damage this video is doing? Leah met his gaze. The only thing damaged is our integrity, and maybe a few egos. Foster forced a thin smile. Officer Bailey's lawyer is already preparing a case. He's claiming harassment and abuse of rank. Leah almost laughed. He assaulted me, humiliated me, and refused to verify my ID. You're calling that harassment? Shaw stood, papers in hand. Captain, no one's denying there was a mistake. But the department can't afford more scandal. We need to handle this internally, quietly. We'll review his conduct, issue a suspension, and move forward. Suspension? Leah's voice sharpened. That's what you call accountability? Chief Douglas sighed. We're trying to keep the public's trust. You of all people should know perception matters. Then maybe you should worry about what they're perceiving, she shot back. They've seen what happens when a black woman in plain clothes walks into one of your officers' perfect neighborhoods. The room went still. White leaned forward. Careful, Captain. You're treading into politics. No, Leah said quietly. I'm treading into truth. Shaw's tone softened, almost sympathetic. Look, Leah, I understand you're emotional. I don't. Her voice cut like a blade. Don't tell me what I am. You buried complaints against men like Bailey for years. I read the summaries. Same patterns, same excuses, insufficient evidence. Unsubstantiated. Always the same. Shaw's expression didn't change, but his eyes flickered. You're making serious accusations. Not accusations, Leah said. Facts. She pulled a folder from her bag and dropped it onto the table. Documents slid out. Copies of complaint summaries, timestamps, and settlement payouts. 12 settlements in 6 years, she said. Over $300,000 of taxpayer money to silence victims. All cases involving Bailey. All reviewed by Internal Affairs. All closed by you, Lieutenant Shaw. Foster reached for the papers. These are confidential. They were, Leah said. Until I realized the only thing confidential around here is corruption. Douglas's voice turned hard. Enough, Captain. You're stepping out of line. No, Chief, Leah said evenly. I'm finally standing in it. Shaw's calm mask cracked for the first time. If you think digging into internal files will end well, you're mistaken. You've got a long career to lose. Leah leaned forward. I already lost it when your officer handcuffed me for existing. She turned and walked out before anyone could answer. Outside the room, her pulse raced. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of defiance. She didn't know what her next move was, but she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't alone anymore. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number again. This time it wasn't a threat. I have proof. Officer Bailey wasn't acting alone. Meet me tonight, no name. Just coordinates. A small diner on the edge of the city. At 8:30 p.m., the diner lights flickered against the rain. Leah walked in, scanning the booths until she saw a familiar face. Officer Harris. He looked younger under the harsh lighting, his hand shaking slightly around his coffee cup. You shouldn't have come, he said, eyes darting to the window. They're watching everything now. I don't scare easy, Leah said, sitting across from him. What do you have? Harris slid a small USB drive across the table. Body cam footage. 40 stops. 3 years. Bailey edited all the official versions. I kept the originals. The ones that show what really happened. Leah stared at the drive. Why are you giving this to me? Because I can't sleep, he whispered. He's been targeting people, pulling them over for nothing, searching cars without cause. Every time someone filed a complaint, Shaw closed it. Said there wasn't enough proof? You recorded everything? Harris nodded. But if they find out, I'm done. My wife, my kids, they'll destroy me. Leah reached across the table, steadying his trembling hand. Then we make sure the truth destroys them first. Outside, headlights swept across the rain-slicked street. A car idled too long at the corner. A shadow behind the wheel. Harris noticed it too. They followed me here. Leah's eyes didn't move from his. Then it's too late to turn back. The headlights vanished into the night, but Leah knew better. Someone was watching. Someone who already knew that her next step could bring everything crashing down. And deep inside, that was exactly what she wanted. By midnight, she sat at her kitchen table again, the USB plugged into her laptop. Video files filled the screen, each labeled by date, each one a story of abuse, traffic stops, wrongful searches, violence, fear. She watched in silence until her throat tightened and her stomach turned. Dozens of lives. Dozens of voices silenced, but not anymore. Her phone buzzed again. A new message. Back off, Captain, or your mother won't wake up tomorrow. Leah froze. Her hand moved before her mind did. She hit record on her phone, saving the message. Then she dialed Ramirez. They're threatening my mother. He didn't hesitate. Stay put. I'm sending units. No, she said. If they're willing to threaten her, it means I'm close. Silence crackled through the line. Leah, don't do anything reckless, she hung up. Her reflection stared back from the dark window, eyes tired but unbroken. For years, she had told new recruits that justice required courage. That silence was the ally of corruption. Now it was her turn to prove it. She copied every file from the USB, uploaded them to 3 encrypted drives, and slipped one into an envelope addressed to a lawyer she trusted. If they wanted to silence her, they'd have to bury the truth in every corner of the city, and the city was already watching. She looked at the photo of her mother on the fridge, smiling from better days. They'll never touch you, she whispered. Then she turned back to the glowing laptop screen, the faces of victims frozen in paused videos. This time, Leah said softly, we finish it. The next morning, her doorbell rang. 3 sharp knocks. When she opened the door, 2 federal agents stood there. Captain Monroe, one said, flashing a badge. I'm Special Agent Williams. We've been monitoring your department for 18 months, and your video just gave us the leverage we needed. Leah's breath caught. You've been investigating Houston PD? The agent nodded. You just opened the door. And in that moment, Leah realized something that chilled and steadied her all at once. This wasn't just about one arrest anymore. It was about the system that allowed it to happen, and she was about to take it apart from the inside. Leah stood in the doorway, rain still dripping from the porch. The taller of the 2 agents met her eyes. We've been gathering evidence, he said, voice low. But you've done what we couldn't. You forced it into the open. She stepped aside. Come in. Inside, the kitchen smelled of coffee and fear. Her mother slept in the next room, the soft rhythm of her breathing a fragile anchor to normalcy. The agent spread out papers, photographs, and a tablet glowing with department charts. Agent Williams pointed at the screen. Your department has a pattern. Complaints tied to specific officers, Bailey, Shaw, Foster, buried every time. Overtime bonuses spike right after cases close. We traced $127,000 in unexplained payments. Leah nodded slowly. The triangle protects itself, his partner added, and they protect whoever keeps them quiet. Leah looked at the photos of victims. 12 faces she already knew by name. 47 more whose files had been sealed. I have footage, she said. Body cams. Original files. Officer Harris recorded them. Williams's eyes sharpened. Then we move fast. They'll try to destroy it. Leah leaned forward. They already tried. She told them about the threats, about the car parked outside, about the virus on the USB Shaw gave her that wiped her laptop clean. Williams exhaled. Then Shaw's desperate. That's good. Desperation makes people sloppy. Leah's voice hardened. He gave me that drive thinking I'd open it. I did, but I backed up everything first. They didn't delete the truth, they just confirmed it exists. The second agent smiled faintly. Captain, you might have just handed us obstruction and tampering charges. Leah poured herself coffee with a hand that barely trembled. Then let's make them count. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. It was the sound of something shifting, like the first crack in a wall that had held too long. By afternoon, Word spread that federal investigators were inside the department. Phones buzzed across every precinct. Bailey's name vanished from duty rosters. Shaw's office door stayed closed, but inside the silence, panic simmered. That night, Leah met Officer Harris again, this time in a secure federal office. His face looked pale under fluorescent lights, his hands restless. "They followed my wife home," he said. "Pictures of my daughters on the porch. No message." "Just that," Leah's stomach nodded. "They're trying to break you." "I'm not backing down," he said. "Not this time." Williams entered with a file. "Captain, we need your statement for the record." "Everything from the arrest to now," Leah sat. Her voice didn't waver as she spoke. "Officer Trent Bailey profiled me, assaulted me, and refused to verify my ID. Lieutenant Mark Shaw covered dozens of similar complaints. The chief signed off on every closure. They buried the evidence under overtime pay." Williams listened in silence, his pen barely moving. When she finished, he said, "You understand what comes next. Once we go public, they'll come for you. Smear campaigns, leaked files, anything they can twist." Leah met his gaze. "Let them look. I've spent my whole life being looked at." Harris swallowed hard. "What about your mother?" Leah's eyes softened. "They touch her. They'll find out what real consequences look like." The room was quiet for a moment. Then William said, "Tomorrow we bring this to the city council. You'll testify. We'll provide protection, but the world needs to see it from you." Leah nodded. "I'll be there." That night she sat beside her mother's bed. Ruth's eyes flickered open, clear for once. "You're still fighting," she whispered. Leah smiled faintly. "Always. Your father used to say the hardest part about truth is the moment before you speak it." Leah held her hand. "Then tomorrow it gets loud." Ruth's eyelids fluttered closed, her breathing steady again. Leah sat for a long time, memorizing the sound, the safety of it, before walking back to her desk. She opened her laptop. Harris's footage filled the screen again. Every stop, every humiliation, every small steady proof. She cataloged each file, marked the dates, matched them to Shaw's overtime reports, and wrote one sentence at the top of the folder. They buried people, not paperwork. By dawn, she had written through the night. Her statement ran 20 pages, each paragraph a cut against silence. At 7, her phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. Just a photo. Her mother through the living room window, sitting in her robe, looking out at the garden. The caption read, "Last chance." Leah's hand tightened around the phone. She dialed Williams immediately. "They're watching my house," his voice sharpened. "We're dispatching a unit. Don't leave." But she was already standing, already strapping on the badge she'd turned in, already checking her mother's room. Ruth was safe, still asleep. Leah kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'll end this today." By 8, federal cars lined the street. 2 agents escorted Ruth to protective custody, while Leah climbed into the back of the lead SUV. The ride to City Hall was silent, except for the hum of tires and the occasional squawk of a police radio. At 9:15, Leah walked into the council building, her wrist still marked. Her badge clipped to her belt once more. Reporters swarmed outside. Flashbulbs popped like lightning. One voice rose above the noise. "Captain Monroe, do you believe the department will retaliate?" She paused, turned slightly toward the cameras. They already did. Inside, the air was cold and bright. The council chamber filled with media, community leaders, and officers in uniform. Every seat taken, every whisper waiting. Williams leaned close. "Are you ready?" Leah's voice was calm. "I've been ready for 22 years. The gavel struck wood. The hearing began. "Captain Leah Monroe," said Council President Morris, "you may begin your testimony." She stepped forward, the room falling silent. "My name is Leah Monroe. I've served with the Houston Police Department for 22 years. On March 15th, I was arrested by one of my own officers while shopping for my mother." Her voice carried through the microphones, clear and steady. "What happened to me wasn't a misunderstanding," she said. "It was a symptom." She began to speak of Bailey, of the stop, the cuffs, the humiliation, of the look in his eyes that said she didn't belong. She told them how he'd refused to verify her identity, how he'd said, "You people always think you're special." Then she clicked a remote, and the screen behind her came alive. The photos, the footage, the numbers: 47 complaints, 12 settlements, $127,000 in hush money, every document stamped, dated, and cross-linked to Shaw's signature. The room erupted. Reporters whispered frantically. Council members exchanged alarmed looks. And Shaw, sitting near the back, rose halfway from his seat before William stood and nodded toward two agents. "Lieutenant Shaw," William said evenly, "you're under federal investigation for obstruction and conspiracy." Shaw froze. The agent stepped forward. The cuffs clicked. Leah didn't flinch. She didn't smile. She just kept speaking. "Every officer who looked away is part of this. Every leader who said it's complicated is part of this. Every silence that followed was permission." The council chamber stood still. Every eye locked on her, and when she said, "The wall that protects corruption just cracked," the silence broke into applause that rolled through the hall like thunder. Outside, the crowd erupted. The live stream count climbed past 6 million. Somewhere in a dark office, Chief Douglas's phone buzzed. A single message from the mayor. "Resign. Today." Back inside, Leah looked toward the window where sunlight spilled across the room. She thought of her mother, safe now, of Jordan, the son she lost. She lifted her eyes and said softly, "This isn't the end. It's the beginning of accountability." And everyone in that chamber knew the city would never be the same again. Weeks passed, but the echoes of that hearing never faded. Leah couldn't walk through a grocery aisle, a gas station, or a city street without someone stopping to thank her. Some just pressed a hand to their heart and nodded. Others said words that left her throat tight. "You gave us a voice." The department had changed overnight. Not because it wanted to, but because it had to. Shaw sat in federal custody awaiting trial for obstruction. Bailey faced charges for civil rights violations and perjury. Chief Douglas resigned before the end of the week, his name already stripped from the lobby plaque. And the city council passed an emergency reform bill named for Leah's son, the Jordan Act, mandating independent review of every police complaint. Leah returned to duty under a new title, Deputy Chief of Reform and Accountability. Her office overlooked the city, and every morning she stood by the window with her coffee, watching the traffic pulse through the streets. It looked ordinary again, but she knew it wasn't the same Houston she'd grown up in. The silence had been broken. Officer Harris, now promoted to sergeant, knocked on her door one afternoon. "Training division's ready," he said. "The recruits are waiting." She followed him down the hall into the new classroom. 47 recruits stood at attention, the number deliberate. Each face young, uncertain, hopeful. Leah looked at them and saw the future she'd almost given up on. "My name is Deputy Chief Monroe," she began, her voice carrying through the room. "You've probably seen my story on the news. But this isn't about me. It's about the 47 people whose complaints were ignored. It's about what happens when the people sworn to protect forget what that word means." She looked around, meeting each pair of eyes. "Every one of you will wear a badge soon. It's not armor. It's not power. It's responsibility. When you see wrong, speak. When you see abuse, report it. If you stay silent, you become it." A few recruits nodded. One young woman's eyes shone with tears she didn't bother hiding. Leah smiled faintly. "I'll hold you to it." After the briefing, she walked outside with Harris. The sun was setting, a wash of orange across the skyline. He exhaled slowly. "Feels different now, doesn't it?" "Yeah," she said. "Different can be good." They stopped by the memorial plaque outside the entrance, names of officers who'd died in the line of duty. Someone had added a new inscription at the bottom, "For those who protected truth when it was dangerous." Leah traced the words with her fingers. Maybe we're finally learning what service means. That night she drove home. The streets were calm, the lights glowing steady. At her house, the porch light was on, and through the window she saw her mother sitting in her chair, humming softly. Inside, Ruth looked up as Leah entered. "Baby, you're late," she said, her voice gentle but clear. Lucid again for once. "Meetings ran long," Leah said, smiling. "Everything's changing at work." Ruth studied her for a moment, then her gaze fell on the fading marks around Leah's wrists. "Someone hurt you," she said quietly. Leah sat beside her, took her hand. "Not anymore. It's over now," Ruth nodded slowly. "You fought for what's right. That's what your father would have done." Leah leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. I just wish Jordan could have seen it. Her mother's hand, frail but steady, rested on her daughter's hair. "He sees you. You made it matter, Leah. You made it matter." For a long time they sat like that, the quiet stretching into something peaceful, The storm that had consumed them for weeks was gone, replaced by the soft rhythm of two heartbeats that had survived. The next morning, her phone buzzed with an alert. Officer Trent Bailey sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Lieutenant Mark Shaw 8 years. Attorney Foster disbarred. Chief Douglas permanently banned from law enforcement. Leah read the headlines once, then closed her phone. Justice didn't feel triumphant. It felt steady, clean, like air after rain. That afternoon, she visited Riverside Market, the same store where it had all begun. The staff recognized her instantly, but she just smiled and nodded. In the nutrition aisle, she picked up a bottle of vanilla Ensure, her mother's favorite. A little boy nearby tugged his mother's sleeve. "That's her, Mom, the police lady who stopped the bad cops." The woman smiled awkwardly. "Thank you for what you did," she said. Leah's throat tightened again, but she managed a quiet, "You're welcome." At the checkout, Daniel Cho bagged her items himself. "Feels strange, huh?" he said, "coming back here." "Feels right," she replied. Outside, the air smelled of rain again. She tilted her face toward it, letting the drops cool her skin. Somewhere in the distance, church bells rang. Back home, Ruth was napping. Leah set the Ensure on the counter, then walked to the window. The city stretched before her, imperfect, alive, still learning. Her phone buzzed once more. A message from Harris. "The recruits asked if you'll speak again tomorrow. They said you made them believe the badge could mean something." Leah typed back, "Tell them I'll be there, every day if I have to." She slipped the phone into her pocket and watched as the clouds broke, sunlight spilling across the rooftops. For the first time in years, she let herself breathe without tension. Change wasn't a headline or a court ruling. It was slower, quieter, built moment by people who refused to stay silent. And as the light filled the room, Leah Monroe understood that her fight had never been about revenge. It was about rebuilding something that had been broken for far too long. Her mother stirred and called her name softly. Leah turned. "I'm here, Mom," Ruth smiled, half asleep. "Don't stop fighting," Leah whispered back. "Never." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Not alarms anymore, but the steady pulse of a city still alive, still learning how to heal. And Leah, standing by the window with the sunlight on her face. Night fell over Houston with a softness Leah hadn't felt in years. The city lights shimmered through her window, their reflections rippling across her living room walls. She sat quietly on the couch, her mother asleep in the next room, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound. It should have been peaceful, but the air carried something electric. A storm waiting behind the silence. Her phone buzzed on the table. An unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something in her gut told her to answer. "Captain Monroe," she said, a man's voice calm but urgent. "Deputy Chief, this is Agent Williams. We have a problem." Leah sat upright. "What kind of problem?" "The city servers were breached an hour ago. Someone tried to erase every record tied to your case. Complaints, payment logs, settlements, everything. They almost succeeded." Her pulse quickened. "Who?" "We traced the breach to an internal access point inside headquarters. It wasn't random. Someone in your department did it, and they're still inside." Leah stood, already grabbing her jacket and keys. "I'm coming down there." "Leah, wait." Williams started, but she ended the call. Some fights couldn't be won from a distance. By the time she reached headquarters, the building was mostly dark. The security desk was unmanned, a half-empty coffee cup still steaming. Her heels echoed against the tile floor as she stepped inside. The lights flickered. Something was wrong. She drew in a slow breath, every instinct sharp again, the same instinct that once kept her alive in raids and undercover operations, the one that told her danger wasn't behind her. It was waiting ahead. Her office door was ajar. She pushed it open carefully. The faint glow of her computer screen pulsed across the room. Lines of code scrolled across it, moving too fast to read. A figure sat in her chair. "Long time, Captain," he said without turning. Leah froze. "Bailey." He turned his head slightly, smirking. "Didn't think you'd see me again, did you? Guess the federal van made a detour." Her voice was steady. "You broke out," he chuckled. "Walked out. Friends in high places. People who still believe in cleaning up the department by any means." "You mean by deleting the truth?" He stood slowly, his badge still pinned to his uniform, even though it should have been stripped away weeks ago. "Truth is messy, Captain. People love heroes until they realize they bleed the same color as the villains. Leah took a step forward, her hand near the stun device on her belt. You're done running. You ruined lives, and you think wiping files will bring them back? He smiled, but there was a crack in his voice now. You think any of this matters? You think your videos, your hearings, your speeches will fix it? You'll bury me and there'll be 10 more of me tomorrow. Then I'll bury 10, she said. Bailey's face twitched. Always the saint. He turned, yanking a flash drive from her computer. This city doesn't want change, Monroe. It wants control. Leah moved before he could reach the door. Years of training collapsed into instinct. Her hand caught his arm, twisting it. The flash drive clattered to the floor. Bailey swung back hard, rage and panic in his movements. The office filled with the sound of struggle, furniture scraping, glass breaking, a printer crashing to the ground. He was stronger, but she was faster. She ducked under his swing, grabbed his wrist, and drove his arm into the desk. The flash of pain in his grunt was followed by the dull click of the cuffs she'd always carried. Officer Trent Bailey, she said between breaths. You're under arrest again. He laughed, even as blood trickled from his lip. You think this changes anything? Leah picked up the flash drive from the floor, her fingers trembling but sure. Yeah, she said quietly. It changes everything. Sirens wailed outside. The building lights came back to life as federal agents rushed in. Williams was at the front, weapon drawn. Leah, are you all right? She nodded. He tried to erase it all. Williams looked at the cuffed officer on the floor, his expression unreadable. He won't get the chance again. The agents took Bailey away, his voice echoing down the hallway, shouting curses that dissolved into silence. Leah turned to her computer. The code was gone, replaced by a single folder labeled Recovered Files. She clicked it open. All of it was there. Every document, every video, every piece of proof. The system hadn't eaten the truth. It had saved it. She sank into her chair, finally letting herself exhale. Williams placed a hand on her shoulder. You did it. It's over. No, she said softly. It's just beginning. Now they rebuild. For real this time. Outside, the dawn was breaking again. 2 weeks later, the courtroom was packed for the final sentencing. Bailey sat at the defense table, face hard, unrepentant. Shaw and Foster were already gone, their trials long finished. The judge read the verdict with calm authority. 12 years in federal prison for violation of civil rights under color of law. Bailey didn't look at Leah. She didn't need him to. The sound of the gavel was enough. Afterward, she stood on the courthouse steps, reporters shouting questions, flashes going off like starlight. She raised a hand for quiet. Justice isn't clean, she said. It's hard, slow, and painful, but it's real. And from today on, this city knows that the badge doesn't hide the truth. It serves it. The crowd erupted in applause. That evening, Leah drove home through quiet streets washed in gold light. Her mother was waiting on the porch, a blanket around her shoulders, smiling faintly. Long day? Ruth asked. The longest, Leah said, kneeling beside her. But it's done. Ruth touched her cheek. Then rest, baby. You've already changed more than you know. Leah took her mother's hand, feeling the warmth of it, fragile but alive. We changed it together. From the distance came the sound of laughter, children playing, music from an open car window, a neighborhood breathing freely again. Leah looked up at the fading sky. Somewhere in that light she could almost see Jordan smiling, his jersey glinting with the same number that had haunted her for years. The number 23, a symbol of what was lost, and what could finally begin again. She whispered, I hope you're proud, son. And the breeze that swept across her porch felt like an answer. Leah Monroe closed her eyes and listened. Not to sirens, not to anger, but to something rare, something precious. A city finally learning what justice sounds like.